Have you ever wondered why some family recipes are kept so secret, locked away like the treasure of a forgotten kingdom? Is it pride, tradition, or is there something more to it? Something lurking behind the taste, the texture, the ritual of making it? Welcome or welcome back to Stories from the Hollow. I am the Wanderer, your storyteller. Tonight's tale reminds us that not all family traditions are worth preserving. Some recipes come with a price, and the flavor of fear lingers long after the meal is done. Thanksgiving 2012 was the year I learned not all family traditions are worth keeping. My Grandma Dahlia had always been the center of our Thanksgiving feast, and her stuffing, fluffy, golden, and packed with flavor, was the crown jewel. The recipe had been in our family for generations, passed down like some kind of holy relic. Nobody but Grandma knew how to make it. I didn't think much of it at first. Grandma was just different. She wasn't the cookie-baking, hug-giving type, more like the don't talk back and wash your hands kind of grandma. She wasn't mean, but she had these sharp blue eyes that always seemed to see right through you. That year, my curiosity got the better of me. It started the day before Thanksgiving. Mum and I were peeling potatoes in the kitchen, and Grandma was across the room by her big old cast-iron pot. She kept adding ingredients I couldn't recognize, muttering to herself. At one point, I swear I heard her say, "Not enough for Macy yet. Needs more time." What did she mean by that? I whispered to Mum. Probably just talking to herself. You know how she is. But I couldn't let it go. That night, when everyone else was asleep, I snuck into the kitchen. I decided I was finally going to figure out what made the stuffing so special. The house was quiet except for the creak of floorboards under my socks. I peeked around the corner and saw the pot still simmering on the stove. And Grandma was there. She hadn't gone to bed like everyone else. She was standing over the pot, her long silver hair hanging like a curtain over her face. She stirred slowly, whispering under her breath. At first I couldn't make out what she was saying. Then I heard it. Names. Eliza, Paul, Ruth, Macy. My stomach turned. I stepped closer, careful not to make a sound, but as I moved, the floor betrayed me with a groan. Grandma froze mid-stir. "Macy," she called, her voice sharper than the kitchen knives hanging on the wall. I ducked behind the counter and held my breath. The next morning, Thanksgiving went on as usual, or so it seemed. Grandma served the stuffing like she always did, with a smug little smile as everyone dug in, but something was wrong. Uncle Paul, who was usually the loudest, barely said a word all night. His eyes looked glassy, and he kept staring into space like he was in a trance. Aunt Ruth kept fiddling with her fork, dropping it over and over like she'd forgotten how to hold it. Even my cousin Eliza, who never stopped talking, sat there silent, staring at her plate. It was like they weren't themselves. "Eat up, Macy," Grandma said, watching me with those piercing blue eyes. "You haven't touched your stuffing." I pushed it around my plate, pretending to take a bite. I couldn't shake the memory of her whispering my name over that pot. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Uncle Paul's empty stare and Aunt Ruth's clumsy hands. Something was wrong, and I had to figure out what. I crept back to the kitchen, heart pounding. The pot was still there, but it was empty now. The leftovers packed away in the fridge. On the counter, I noticed Grandma's recipe box. I opened it and found the card labeled Thanksgiving Stuffing, except it wasn't a recipe. It was a list of names. Paul, Ruth, Eliza, Macy. The floor creaked behind me. "What are you doing, Macy?" Grandma's voice was low and cold. I spun around, clutching the card. "What is this? What are you doing to everyone?" Grandma smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was thin and tight. her eyes gleaming in the dim light. "It's a family tradition," she said, "one I've kept alive for years." She stepped closer, and I backed away until I hit the counter. "You see, Macy, the recipe isn't just for stuffing. It's for keeping us together. Family is everything, and this ensures we'll never drift apart." I shook my head. "You're controlling them," she laughed, a dry, brittle sound. "Oh, Macy, you're too young to understand, but don't worry. Once you've had your share, you'll see things my way." I bolted for the door, but Grandma was fast, faster than someone her age should have been. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. The next part is a blur. I remember kicking and screaming, a chair tipping over, the sound of something shattering. When I finally broke free, I ran to my room and locked the door. The next morning, Grandma acted like nothing had happened, but Uncle Paul, Aunt Ruth, and Eliza were still off, and Grandma kept watching me, smiling that thin, tight smile. I didn't eat the stuffing that year, or ever again. The next Thanksgiving, Grandma passed away. Mum said it was peaceful in her sleep. But I found her recipe box in the attic a few months later. There was a new card inside. It just said, Macy. And so, another tale from the Hollow comes to a close. If you enjoyed tonight's story, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Stories from the Hollow. There are always more stories waiting, lurking just beyond the edges of the light. Until next time, keep a light on, just in case the Hollow comes calling for you too.